Israel's back at Al-Shifa Hospital. Al-Shifa Hospital is a major complex in the heart of Gaza City. Israel attacked it as one of its main attack points back in, I believe, November 2023, claimed that Hamas maintained a command and control center underneath the hospital. It failed to prove that. It found one tunnel that Israel had actually built years before that was adjacent to the hospital and used the opportunity to put the hospital partially out of service. The north has been destroyed. The Al-Rimal neighborhood around Al-Shifa has been destroyed by Israeli bombing. Much of the population has been ethnically cleansed and pushed south to Rafah. But some 300, 400,000 people remain in northern Gaza. And Al-Shifa has managed to kind of trudge along, sort of begin to reconstitute itself. And now Israel's back there claiming, once again, it's a Hamas command and control center, and it's carrying out heinous atrocities. This is footage of a group of French Israeli soldiers, so basically French foreign fighters, assaulting and abusing Palestinian men around Al-Shifa Hospital.
T'as vu ces enculés, mon neveu? Ces fils de putain? Allez, descends, fils de pute. Sur les pierres. Ah, enculé de ta mère.
Sur les pieds.
Fils de putain, là, regarde, il s'est pissé dessus. Regarde, je vais te montrer son dos, tu vas rigoler. Regarde. Ils l'ont torturé pour le faire parler. T'as vu son dos? Ah, fils de putain.
Qu'est-ce que tu fais en Palestine, fasciste? What are you doing there? Anyway, we're seeing so many atrocities. The blowing up of the surgical center at Al-Shifa. We're hearing about field executions. These are Israeli soldiers. Actually, they're assaulting hospitals across the north. They've assaulted Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital. This is at the Indonesian hospital. Again, Israeli soldiers sort of playing doctor with medical garb they've stolen. Sort of a mixture of Joseph Mengele and like Jewish frat douches from any Ivy League college. Horrible stuff. But what's really going on here? Here's Israel's sort of justification for what they're doing at Al-Shifa Hospital. Now, we know that Israel's trying to put these hospitals and keep these hospitals out of service because they're trying to destroy any center of life. As Aaron mentioned earlier, Israel's preventing UNRWA from making aid deliveries to the north. They've established what's called the Netzarim corridor between the north of Gaza and the central area of Deir al-Balah, leading down to the south towards Khan Yunis. And that's going to be like a 2-kilometer wide tank corridor to prevent anyone from the north from reaching the south. And they want to cut the north off completely and turn it into this kind of collaborator territory where UNRWA can't operate, where there's no Hamas. And they're claiming that they've arrested all these top Hamas agents and carried out this heroic operation around Shifa. And they've produced this collage that shows 358 confirmed terror operatives and more than 650 suspects from Hamas detained. Basically, they can just, generate this image by AI or pull up the population registry, which is in their computer systems of the entire Gaza Strip, and generate this very easily. We have no idea who they are, who they're affiliated with, whether they're Hamas. We've seen so many of these mass detentions where people would online recognize one of their neighbors and say, oh yeah, he's a doctor. Oh yeah, I went to college with him. He's just like my friend. They have nothing to do with any militant activity. However, there is a certain truth there, which is that battles are raging around the Al-Shifa area. You can go on to the Telegram channels that broadcast footage filmed by the Al-Qassam brigades and Sarai al-Quds of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and they'll show them hitting Israeli tanks with tandem rockets, taking on Israeli soldiers with machine guns. There is fighting there. So if we are to accept the Israeli official narrative about what's happening at Al-Shifa Hospital, That's still terrible for Israel. As I pointed out earlier, they're trying to go into Rafah. They say that there are 2 more battalions that they need to take out, or brigades that they need to take out of Al-Qassam to finish the job, and that they're in Rafah. But yet they're still fighting in the north. And 2 months ago or more, Israel pulled out the Golani and Givati brigades from northern Gaza. And they're sort of they claimed an operational hold. They claimed a victory in Shujaiya, which is where they suffered their worst losses in 2014. And now they're back. And so it just shows that Israel, after 5 months, cannot eradicate Hamas and will not eradicate Hamas. And as long as it stays there, it will be in an endless war, a permanent insurgency in which it's just bled all political support around the world and is carrying out the most heinous atrocities imaginable. How much longer can they keep going before they admit that their objective has failed and their other objectives failed? They're not getting any hostages out. One just died of starvation, because everyone's dying of starvation. Not everyone, but so basically, in a nutshell, Israel's presence at Al-Shifa hospital again is a token of defeat.
And let's remember, the Biden administration laid the groundwork for this back in November, when, just as Israel was assaulting Al-Shifa, John Kirby came out and said that the U.S. has its own intelligence of Hamas command and control there at Al-Shifa. They were basically co-signing Israel's assault on Al-Shifa hospital. And then, of course, there was no such command and control whatsoever. And now this recently came out. Chris Van Hollen, again, one of the few Democratic senators who's critical of Israel, he comes out with this. He reveals that at the time, he got briefings that didn't show evidence of what the U.S. was saying, and that actually the evidence was undermined by what the U.S. was publicly saying. This is from the Washington Post. Chris Van Hollen, who had received a classified briefing about the U.S. intelligence on Al-Shifa, said there were important and subtle differences between what Biden officials were saying publicly and what the intelligence actually showed. I did find there was I did find there to be some disconnect between the administration's public statements and the classified briefings about Al-Shifa, Chris Van Hollen said. And that's great. And, at the time, anybody with their eyes open pointed out that the administration was lying. But again, for Chris Van Hollen, why didn't you say this at the time? If you were being told something differently in private from what the administration was saying publicly about a Hamas command center at Al-Shifa, why didn't you say that? Why are you only saying this now, months after the fact, and after Israel's attacking Shifa now for, the upteenth time after the initial assault in November? It's just like, this is the best we can do with Democrats, is after the fact, they'll come out and say, oh yeah, we were being lied to. Why not say it at the time?
Yeah. It was obvious. I mean, my whole, it's just obvious at the time when an Israeli official is speaking words or in public, or their mouth is open, that they're lying, that they are just urinating on our heads and telling us that it's raining. That's what they do. So, but the senators are such cowards. They all know what Israel's doing is not just heinous, but it's even counterproductive to whatever Israeli interests are. And yet none of them are willing to say anything because of the sheer power of the Israel lobby. Why else would Chris Van Hollen vote against UNRWA, funding UNRWA, after all he knows and has said?
Yeah.
Something else has really fascinating has come out of the Al-Shifa siege by Israel, which has left hundreds dead. And we've heard, if you look at Euromed, Human Rights Monitor reports, witness after witness describing field executions, people who live near the hospital having their homes raided, just being shot on sight, having their homes burned and being told to march north. Israel wants to cleanse the whole area.